let's imagine, somebody's really new to all of, those TikTok style videos and so on. Do you have any tips on how to get started?
Doing a good LinkedIn profile is honestly the first step, which I would say it is so easy. Just sit down for half an hour and you already can get somewhere. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn banner, go to Canva. There's so many templates. Yeah. There are AI ways of how to do a good picture. And I mean, there's ChatGPT that can help you also now write things, right? So there are ways of how to do an easy LinkedIn profile. I bet you half an hour at the end of this week, do that.
Have you ever thought of building your personal brand on LinkedIn? Because let's be honest, I think most of us already had this thought. But where do you start? And is there anything you should keep in mind when you want to start? Well, we've had an inspiring discussion with Vivian Boche, who's currently working for the BTP Center of Excellence. And you might know her from LinkedIn because she really caused quite a stir through her LinkedIn videos, which are all about BTP and kind of in this TikTok style, right? But now let's jump right into the video.
Start with LinkedIn. Why did you start? And can you share a little bit, about the insights of the start of your journey?
So I've always done a bit of LinkedIn. So even when I was in university, I always shared a couple of things, but I haven't really done it intensively. Mm-hmm. When it did start, though, was actually a fun story, I would say. It started all when the SAP BTP or Business Technology Platform got announced. And I started to ask people, can you explain to me what it is and why? And people always came to me with a 20-slide deck and started to explain. I was like, no. I want 60 seconds, what and why. Mm-hmm. And people couldn't give that to me. So I was like, okay, let me then try to do it. And at that time, it was, I think, still a bit of lockdown. So I was watching also a lot of TikTok videos at that time, and I liked the format. So I thought, why not put these two together, produce a 60-second video that summarizes these things and share it on LinkedIn? So I shared it with a couple of my colleagues. They were like, yeah, that's so cool. But they also were a bit like, but are you sure about TikTok? Is that not something that doesn't really work? Well, I did it anyways, and I got a lot of positive reaction from it because people were also looking for that. So I felt a need where there was a confusion, and I addressed it with a simple and clear message. And that's about how it all started. So now I'm not only doing those videos anymore, I'm doing kind of a corporate influencer role where I talk about a lot of things, right? It's obviously BTP, but it's also about women in tech. It's about career development. It's being a young person trying to navigate their career and generally what is new in the innovation tech trends.
That's awesome. And I think you're doing a great job. Now it's shy of 11,000 followers. So congratulations. Let's also go a little bit through your journey. So you've been doing LinkedIn for a couple of years already. What was the greatest, surprise that you've encountered, through all of these years?
Very short, that people actually care what you share there. So I can encourage everybody who is interested in putting yourself out there. And honestly, that is not easy because you might be thinking a lot about, should I really do this? Should I post this? And honestly, I sometimes still have this kind of feeling. And I'm like, what happens if I press that now? Will that be now positive, negative? Like maybe nobody cares. But generally speaking, I got very surprised about how much people actually enjoyed the content I put out there. Mm-hmm. And then also how many positive responses I got back. People wrote obviously under my comment, but people also wrote me private messages. People wrote me directly over Teams if they were in working at SAP, or they even come up to me when I was in another office and you're like, hey, you're Vivian, right? I love what you're doing. And this is so amazing, right? Yeah. When I go to other events, also external people come to me and say please continue what you do. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's all positive because there are also some negative voices and you just need to be prepared sometimes to how to encounter. But generally it's about that what you put out there, and if it's authentic, and that's one thing which I really would advise everybody, don't be a post bot, don't do that, give always your personal note and be authentic, and then you will actually notice how much that resonates.
That's really nice insights. Let's imagine, somebody's really new to all of, those TikTok style videos and so on. Do you have any tips on how to get started?
I guess let's differentiate between LinkedIn and videos. Mm-hmm. Let's start with LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn is not that difficult. Why? Because your competition is very low. If you just look around on different LinkedIn profiles, so many are so bad. Mm-hmm. And with bad, I mean, they don't have a good banner. They don't have a professional picture. They don't have any kind of tagline, which is literally right under your image. They have not even all their experience listed. They have not a description in their experiences. You can newly also know add skills to it, and these skills can be again then filtered by potential new people who hire you. So doing a good LinkedIn profile is honestly the first step, which I would say it is so easy. Just sit down for half an hour and you already can get somewhere. LinkedIn banner, go to Canva. There's so many templates. There are AI ways of how to do a good picture. And I mean, there's ChatGPT that can help you also know write things, right? So there are ways of how to do an easy LinkedIn profile. I bet you half an hour at the end of this week, do that.
Yeah.
Good. But then it's also about being active on LinkedIn, right? If you want to do this, then find your niche, right? Don't boil the ocean. Find what you want to talk about and what you, as your authentic self, can position out there. Again, for me, it started with BTP, and I specialize in the extensibility and the clean core strategy and those things. But I also tried now to expand myself beyond that by also looking at career development, women in tech, innovation trends, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So try to have maybe 2 to 3 topics where you start off with and go deeper in there. And I always say, if you replicate it once, you can replicate it on a lot of different levels. So if you write something for LinkedIn, write 3 posts, and there you go, you have blog posts and SAP blogs, right? If you create a video, don't only upload it on LinkedIn, upload it also on other places. Create a YouTube channel. I mean, again, it's a lot of work, and you need to be kind of open and this kind of persona that wants to do it, because putting yourself out there is not easy.
Yeah.
So if I now move over to the videos part, well, have some kind of good equipment. It can be an iPhone, right? Have some kind of good microphones, because sound is everything. Be in a quiet room, have some kind of decent lighting.
Yeah.
You can do low budget good videos, right? And there are so many apps out there. And well, try to just look what works well, right? There are great apps that you can use. You can even use Instagram, TikTok to cut those things. So I guess that's a way to get started with the video. So, but in general, get started and not just think about it. Literally actively do something, do tiny steps, and you will see where you go in the next 6 months to 1 year.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it's also really about learning by doing, right? So I think the first step is to actually put up the phone and just talk to yourself and see how it looks, right? And then you can always move on from there.
Yes, but I also tell you, it's scary to look at yourself. When you have recorded yourself, you will probably hate your voice. You probably will hate of how you look, but it's so useful to understand how you act. And then also those videos, you're right. Put the camera up, just talk about 60 seconds, maybe make some bullet points that you just feel comfortable. Record it, take the best cut, and there you go.
Absolutely. Awesome. In your experience, what really works, what resonates with your audience? Do you have any tips on what kind of content performs best?
Authentic content, I talked about that, but also people kind of say that LinkedIn became the new Facebook, where people share about, I don't know, their marriage, their dog, their experience where they went. I always think, yes, I think it's to some extent good, but you always obviously should not lose that this is a business center network. So try to obviously relate your story always back to what it actually means in terms of the business, the wider picture, the work you do, those kind of things. What resonates well is still people in some way, right? I mean, just taking a picture of maybe your computer with a slide on, or taking a screenshot of a slide is not that powerful as if you would, for example, do the selfie arm and do like a picture with you at an event or something. Or maybe you being in the office, or you're your home office for some reason when you want to talk about these things, right? Again, it needs to fit to what you are actually talking about, to your specific niche. But again, having always a visual is really good. The text itself structured in a way so that you use paragraphs, that you maybe, if you want to use emojis, those kind of things. I guess important also to note is if you tag people and these people don't react to you in the first hour of your post, the algorithm will harshly downgrade you.
Okay, interesting.
So whenever you have tagged people, please, say something to those people if they are not aware of it. Because if they don't like or comment, ideally both is the best, then your post, then the algorithm thinks, well, if those people who are even tagged in it don't like it, why should I distribute that further? Which again makes sense, right? But a lot of people don't know it, and they tag like this amount of people, and then I'm like, well, you already set up your post to some extent of failure, because I think, they get a notification if they see it. I would say max maybe 5 people, try to limit it.
Now let's go back to your personal development, your personal career. Did LinkedIn and, building your personal brand have an impact for a personal and professional career?
I think yes. Obviously, it did not negotiate my salary. That is not what it did. But it still enabled you to be more seen. And I think if people know you a tiny bit closer to where you could get, it's easier maybe also to say, hey, I'm very interested in what you do. Let's have a coffee, for example. So I think it's a good way to position yourself as an expert in a particular area, maybe where you want to grow even into, right? Use it as a platform to maybe go the next step of where you want to go. But also I think it's good to create this visibility of your own brand, of your own profile, because again, that only can help you. I think visibility in itself is not it cannot be bad to some extent, of course. But I also have learned that networking is not everything. Also, knowing this person is not everything. Your work also needs to speak for itself, right? So I've learned actually that the best way that people is that you have some kind of crowd of people, let's say 5 to 10 people that can highly talk about your work when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
Will work in conjunction that people know you is the best combination. So maybe make sure that you have some kind of crowd that knows you and knows your work well and speaks highly about when you're not in the room, in addition to building your brand for what you stand for, right? I have been giving personal branding classes, and I always said okay, what are the 3 things that people say about you when you're not in the room? And then what are the 3 things that you would like that people actually say about you when you're not in the room? And if there's a mismatch between these 2, well, then you have to need to do some personal branding, right?
Yeah.
And this can be by doing workshops, yourself being proactive and suggesting maybe some kind of presentations, writing blog posts, doing videos, having it in your signature, these kind of 3 topics. Talk to me about X, Y, Z, right? So there are various different ways of how I think LinkedIn still helped me with that. But I feel I still used it as a great jump into other things, like how I combine them.
Yeah, totally understand. Nice. And coming to our last question of today, if a colleague, is not sure about if he should do it or not, what would you tell the person?
Well, I would ask them why they're not sure about it. And then obviously understand where the hesitation comes from. But I also think you should not force somebody if they don't want to do it, right? It needs to fit to the person. But if you're still thinking with halfway, I really would like to do this, but I don't know how, well, break it down. Maybe start with what are you, in your job maybe right now, are you an expert for something? What are maybe things that you know that could be interesting for other people? If you don't know what that could be, talk to the people around you who could maybe tell you, hey, you do this so well. I would love to actually understand more about these things. And you will slowly understand, oh, I took these things for granted because I thought they're so basic. But actually, to other people, it's valuable knowledge. So define your niche in some extent. And then, as we said before, set up the camera or take out your computer, write this blog post or whatever, right? I mean, there's so many different ways of how they could do it. And please do your LinkedIn profile, because I can't see so many bad profiles out there, because honestly, this is your Visitenkarte, business card.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that well and somebody comes to your profile and they don't immediately understand what are the 3 things that you are standing for, then you're missing out on building your brand and being known and building up your career and developing yourself. So these are things I would say. Start with your profile, book yourself 30 minutes this week. Think about what you would like to stand for. What are these 3 things? And then think about what is the best way for you to actually build out this brand.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Vivian. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.